While the Abuja lockdown continues without hassle, the Lagos lockdown has some level of confrontation in certain parts of the state.
Indeed, and this is due to the continuous clamour by some residents who believe that the federal government has not done enough to ensure that proper lockdown is carried out.
Well, some residents in Lagos are seen on the streets having a free day and not observing the lockdown.
You are right, Sal, but I have a question, please. You're saying we should stay indoors.
Well, joining us now here in Lagos is Ben Akah, a public affairs analyst who resides in Lagos. Well, you can see from that video, a lot of people clamoring there saying no food, no light. How do they expect us to stay at home? We do know that the federal government has indeed set up a relief fund, but the problem here is that those that need it haven't gotten it yet. How would you react to this affecting the lockdown during this coronavirus pandemic?
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for having me here today. First of all, I think all the palliative measures that have been put in place don't have the structure to get to those that need them. Those that need these things most in our society are the people who live on a daily economy. In other words, people who, if they don't go out today, will have nothing to eat tomorrow. Those are the people that need it most. Most of them don't even have bank accounts, so you are not talking about a BVN to send money to them. Most of them also don't have IDs, national ID, NIM, to be able to identify where do they live, how do you reach them. So government has to think out of the box to find out how to reach this type of people. See, when you look at those in Lagos who are not obeying these things that are happening, you'll find out that a lot of them are ignorant, uneducated, and indisciplined. And these are the three things that are actually militating against the good intentions of government. What does it take to let somebody know that his life is at risk? And the same person comes to tell you that hunger will kill him before the virus, which is not true anyway. I believe that the palliative packages that the government has should be in terms of food packages, and they should be sent around all the neighborhoods that are known to be low neighborhoods inhabited by the poor.
We will continue this conversation regarding the Lagos lockdown. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We still have Ben Akah with us in our Lagos studios, looking at the lockdown in Lagos State particularly. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'd like to talk about citizens' responsibility because it is clearly a prescription in the fight against this disease. And I think that the president put it aptly in that speech when he said, quote, "As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic." But let me ask you, where do you think the stumbling block is here? Why are these groups of individuals and populace not taking this responsibility? Like we saw on that street in Lagos, even though we cannot independently verify where it was in Lagos, we can't tell that that was Lagos because of the security officials in that video.
Yeah, thank you for the question. In Lagos, my ears on the ground and my eyes also on the ground. A lot of the people you see there are exhibiting what a society has in abundance. Number one, illiteracy. Number two, indiscipline. And then number three, lack of care for even themselves. You see, what the government has done is desirable, is also rational. They haven't gone to reinvent the wheel. This pandemic has visited other countries of the world before coming to Nigeria. And the government is just learning from the success stories of those other countries to apply the same measures. The only problem we may have here is that the society here is a little different from the society abroad. But in terms of the spectrum, you have the wealthy in China, you have also the poorest of the poor in China. No society is different. It's how disciplined are they. One thing that is militating against them in Lagos here is that people are saying, we are living from day to day. If we don't work today, we have nothing to eat tomorrow. And it's apparent in all strata of Nigerian society, every town, every place, not just Lagos alone. So what can the government do better? What the government can do better is to arrange that the palliatives, which are in terms of food rations, should be distributed only to the areas that are known to be occupied by the poorest of the poor. It is well known that you have places like Makoko, you have places like Ajegunle, you have places like Ijora Badia. All those kind of places are where they should establish places where they distribute rations. And Nigerians must realize that we must have faith in the system. Even when they are sharing the ration, you find that people are going to be fighting instead of being disciplined and taking them one by one. So our biggest problem here in listening and aligning ourselves is discipline and lack of education. The primary purpose of government is to take care of the security of our lives. And our lives are threatened by the virus. Our lives are threatened at the moment. And the government is putting in place all this. All we can do is to cooperate in spite of all the personal inconveniences. The rich get inconvenienced, the middle class get inconvenienced, the poor get inconvenienced, the poorest of the poor get inconvenienced. Everybody must accept to make that sacrifice to be able to live, if not just for himself, to be able to allow others to live. When the government says social distance of 2 meters, all it's saying is that if I am infected and I am near you, if you are more than 2 meters away from me, you are likely not to be infected. Why would you not want to be 2 meters away from me? Is it because you don't love your life? Are we going to blame the government for that as well? I think in Lagos today that the government has done what is absolutely very, very good in terms of the response.
Coming here, real quickly, you said palliative should be shared in, areas that the poor live, but the question is, do you even have areas that the poor live in Lagos these days? Come to VI, come to Ikoyi, you see squatter camps set up almost everywhere, almost every street, almost every corner. And secondly, I want to talk about the discretion, because we had somebody on the show yesterday who was talking about the discretion of police officers and the likes. But how can you control that? I had an episode this morning. A police van was parked just as you descend Clamour Bridge. And nobody was in the van, it was just parked there, and I'm probably sure the person walked away. As I was coming to, I saw another police officer. The first person that stopped me was, goodness me, I knew what his mouth was reeking of as at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. How do you bring in discretion in those two instances?
Discretion at this moment. I also saw that police van that was parked. All I read from them is, we don't want you to pass through this route. So I went on the bridge and made a U-turn and came down. And by the time you come down to Clamour roundabout, you now found where they had some policemen to check. Where are you going? Why are you going there? And who are you? These are some of the measures they put in place to make sure that to encourage people to obey the lockdown. These are the measures. I don't find anything very wrong with it at all. As far as for the man reeking of alcohol early in the morning, my brother, for as long as you have many people, you have many behavioral patterns and all that. we can't look at that and say that should discourage us from personally contributing to make sure it's a success. Let me tell you, each individual is fighting for his life. People are taking this in very lightly. Because most, maybe they don't watch televisions, they don't watch international channels to see what's happening in Italy, what's happening in every other, even in America. We need to take this seriously, take it as a personal challenge. Let's not look at the other man to say, this man is not doing this. What are you doing yourself? The education should be personal challenge. This is a very serious matter. This is something that threatens your life, that of your family, because if you have it, most likely you share it amongst your family. Do you want your entire family to be wiped off? The answer is no. So I place 100% burden on the individual. Government has said, do this, do this, do this. If we know that what they're saying is not practical, we can argue about it. But a lot of it is practical. If only we can decide to discipline ourselves and take some pains. I hope you understand what I'm talking about now.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Ben. Very quickly, as we round up, I want to quickly bring to your attention the one thing that Nigerians currently face, which is the overload of fake news and information that doesn't necessarily come from the WHO or the NCDC. Those are registered bodies that have the accurate information about COVID-19. And even as they have more time on their hands at home, this begins to increase. Now, at this point, how do we begin to control that flow of information to make sure, in that video as well, we saw people saying that they didn't have light. So how do they even begin to know what is right and what is wrong if they don't have access, and even when they do, it's filled with fake news?
Okay, number one, the only news that will be authentic are news from the first-tier news channels. News that can be verified. News that whoever puts it out can be identified and can be prosecuted if it's false. That's number one. So social media, for me, is entertainment. Whatever you hear from it, whatever you get from it, you take it with a bag of salt, not a pinch. And I advise people to pay little heed to social media, but to pay a lot of heed to frontline media. That's one. The overload of false information is too much in social media. And anybody placing his trust on news from social media is in self-destruction. That's it, and that's the truth. Now, people are saying they don't have light. Light problem didn't start from this virus pandemic. It has always been there. And these people have had ways of getting their news and information. When somebody doesn't have light, his friend has. If his friend has, what does it take you at this particular time of being your neighbor's keeper to call your friends and share good information? You are supposed to be at home, not doing much, except taking care of yourself, your neighbor, and actually developing that love. This pandemic is supposed to bring us completely new ways of life. It's trying to tell us that even those of us that are working and very busy and all that, you need to be close to your family. So you are together, you are bonding, you can now talk better. You are at home all the time, so you can think about your friends, you can think about your relatives, you can take up your phone and call them. Thank God that a lot of the measures taken by the government has left the essential services functioning.
It's all about sacrifices in a time like this, and thank you so much, Ben Akah, for sharing your thoughts on the lockdown in Lagos State at the moment.